Hi, and welcome to Effective Storytelling. Our 5-minute stories have one key purpose: to connect life to learning in an entertaining way. There are no heroes or villains, just ordinary people providing extraordinary learning, often making you smile and usually making you think. So, on with today's story. Searching for a van. As a novice trainer, I was running a residential training course for a senior management group. It was a wet, grey, drizzly day, and they had an outdoor task. They had been tasked to work in separate teams and eventually find a van to take them back to the hotel. I waited for their arrival, and waited, and waited. After quite a while, I decided I'd better check where they were, and went to where I'd parked the van. No sign of the group. I decided to check the map reference I'd given them. It was the wrong reference. I'd accidentally marked an electric cable as the site rather than a road. In a panic and with mounting fear as to the consequences of my mistake, I set off across the fields to check the reference I'd given them. And there they were, sitting down, thoroughly wet, thoroughly miserable, and really annoyed. I apologised, explained my error, and in silence we walked our way back to the van and back to the hotel, where I asked them to get dry and meet for a debrief in half an hour. This was one of the longest and most painful half hours of my life so far. What would I say? How could I rectify the mistake? How could I ever look them in the face again? How could I justify ever running a training program again for anyone, let alone this group? As I entered the debrief room, there they all sat, in stony silence, with a range of facial expressions, none of them good. I took a deep breath. "I'm truly sorry," I began. "It was a simple mistake, and one I should not have made. It's a big lesson for me to check more thoroughly. I don't know what else to say. So, let's move on." And we did. And it got better. Afterwards, the director came up to me in the bar and offered to buy me a drink. He said, "We were all furious and wanting your scalp. But you said exactly the right thing. You apologised, explained why it had happened, how you felt, and how you would learn from it. That was all that was needed. If you tried to avoid responsibility or find an excuse, I would have walked out and the rest would have followed, and you wouldn't have been asked back. As it is, we've all accepted your apology, delivered with due humility, and are happy to move on to the rest of the program." Later that evening, someone told me, "When I saw you standing there, clearly upset and nervous, I put myself in your shoes. And it reminded me of my own fallibility too. I knew how you felt, and how I had felt, and how I wished someone had been kinder to me. So this was my chance to pay it back." And I worked with this team and their company for several years after that. When someone has made a mistake, which to be fair is going to happen, you have fundamentally two choices: to punish or to develop. There may be occasions when the cost and failure has been so great that removal or dismissal is the only realistic option, but often the better decision might be to see it as a learning opportunity, and in so doing not only see it as training, but also a way of gaining commitment. There are several takeaways from this story. We are all human, psychological safety, pivotal moments, anticipating the worst, pass it on, and empathy. We are all human. We all make mistakes. No one is infallible. So it might be helpful to develop a culture in which mistakes are framed as such, so that people do not live in fear of making a mistake. Psychological safety. Being more mistake tolerant and less mistake averse is part of creating a psychologically safe environment, and may have real benefits such as people coming forward and raising concerns, and people being more prepared to take risks and be more creative. Pivotal moments. These are moments when the choice made can make a real difference. Dealing with a mistake is one of those moments. If you've ever made a mistake and been criticised or punished for it, how did that feel? And if it was a learning opportunity, then how did that feel? That pivotal moment may have had a significant impact on your motivation, morale, commitment, confidence, and future performance and loyalty. Anticipating the worst. In the story, the new employee feared the worst, but the worst didn't happen, quite the reverse. It's typical for many that in facing a difficult situation, we fear the worst. We even catastrophize, identifying and anticipating the very worst that could happen, in this case, getting fired. So although in this example it might seem reasonable to have feared the worst, in general be careful not to develop a habit of fearing the worst for every outcome. Not only will that create stresses and strains that prove to be unnecessary, but might also encourage you to constantly play safe, and as a result, diminish or hide your best efforts and potential success and satisfaction. Pass it on. You may have heard of the phrase pass it on, which means if you've received a benefit or gift, anything positive, then pass it on. This story is a case in point. The person who spoke to me later that evening knew how I felt because they had experienced something similar and had wished they had been treated more kindly. So this was their opportunity to pass that learning on. Empathy. The above example was also extremely empathetic. They were able to put themselves in my shoes and appreciate how I must be feeling and how they could show support. For me, it has always been a classic example of empathy, and that response has certainly encouraged me to respond to others' mistakes in a similar way and to put myself in the other person's shoes. Remember, you can search lots of stories at effective.vision/storytelling. Browse over 50 themes to find the perfect one. You'll also find transcripts and downloads of every story. And of course, if you enjoyed listening, please share and remember to subscribe. And if you have a story you'd like to share, please email us hello@effective.vision.